welcome back to Intern to Empire, where we talk to young people and mentors and get their story on how they're winning in their early's career, industry, and life. I'm your host, Ava Swinton, and this is episode 12. Today, as my co-host, I have my lovely mother, Ina Swinton, and as our guest, we have Brandon. If you guys could please both respectively introduce yourself.
Okay, I'll go first. My name is Ina Swinton, and I have the great pleasure of being one of Ava's, I would say, first mentors and continued my relationship with Ava, of course, mentoring her every day. And I love to say that she calls me from college all the time to ask questions from whether she should buy something to how she should deal with a teacher or what ways there are of getting internships and everything in between. And today we are so excited to have our amazing guest who's going to introduce himself right now.
Hi, my name is Brandon Roberts. I'm a film composer living in Los Angeles, and I've been around a while, so I've been on both sides of it. I've been mentored, and I've tried to mentor back when it calls for it. So, had quite the path, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay, wait. So let's start with a very basic first question. What was the first instrument you played, and when did you start first playing music?
Okay, so I tried violin when I was very young, but I'm not going to count that because that was not playing an instrument. That was hacking away at a piece of wood. So I'm going to say guitar was my first instrument, and I started playing in middle school because I saw a middle school band play, and it seemed like all the girls liked the band guy. So I thought, I'll learn guitar. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then I just fell in love with it, mainly as a jazz musician, and then at a certain point segued into film composition.
I love that. I feel like a lot of musicians, when you speak to them, noticed that the girls liked men who play instruments. I guess we have the Beatles and Elvis and everyone in between. Justin Bieber, so Harry Styles.
It's a very strong motivator when you're that age.
Yes. And so was your family musical? How did, other than this middle school, which I love how important middle school is to so many of our guests and to me as well. What about your family? Was there music in your house? How did you make sure there was music around you?
Well, ironically, neither one of my parents is musical, other than loving music like everybody. But they, in terms of playing an instrument, neither one of them does. But they were incredibly supportive. So they wanted me to try a bunch of different things and then see where it landed. And both of them still joke to this day. They're like, "How in the world did you wind up in music, given our skill or lack of skill set in that field?" But what they did do was support me 100%, and that makes all the difference.
I am also a musician. I started playing piano at 4 years old. Thank you, Mom.
Oh, nice.
I also started singing at 4. So we've been a very through my parents' help, we've been able to be very musical children, which has definitely very helped. I'm still pursuing my musicality in college. I am a minor at Blair, which is the conservatory at Vanderbilt. So it's been super amazing. Definitely a lot of work. My music theory class was kicking my butt this semester. But no, I love it. So my mentor put me into music as well.
Well, it was interesting because my background, I am an actor, and my father is an engineer because I'm from the Soviet Union, where everybody was an engineer at a certain point.
Right.
It's one of those organized things where many smart people become engineers, and then you have all these engineers and nobody designing something. So anyway, but music was an important part of our family. My grandmother sang, my uncle was a singer, and yet as an immigrant, sometimes there are other issues. So when we came to America, everyone in my generation was told by their parents they had to be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer. Since my parents were engineers, they said doctor, lawyer. It was my great love always. The first musical I saw was Les Mis.
Mm.
The first
Broadway.
musical we saw was Mary Poppins.
Was Mary Poppins. And I think my kids have seen, I don't know, 100 musicals. That was
God,
always
that's
how we celebrate, and opera and ballet. And I wanted to make sure that they knew this language. So I am fascinated by the language of music. And Brandon is, I don't even want to talk about your resume, but you've been nominated for multiple Emmys. You've won an Emmy, and
which we listened to the soundtrack of Free Solo, by the way. Incredible.
Well, we already love the movie.
Oh
we
my
have
God.
some climbers in the family.
Some big climbers.
Some big climbers. My husband climbed all over, and my son loves climbing.
Oh, cool.
And so we have mountaineers, and it's interesting because Maxime would always scamper up something when he was little, and it's interesting how there's this instinct to go up. And when I was listening to the beginning of Free Solo, it just fills you with this magnificent awe. I think the way I was imagining sunrise over a mountain, and the tension of I felt it all. And I was wondering, and we'll just work from here, but we'll go back to that process, to the burger shop later. But I was curious how you felt the mountain and how that came about. I heard it in the music. So if you could just tell us a little bit about how that particular project came to be, and how you worked with the director, and what you felt about capturing nature and its magnificence.
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, going back to mentor stuff for a second, I've worked with Marco Beltrami a lot over the course of the last 10 years. And he's, so he and I have done a lot of scores together. I've done a lot of, he was, I guess if you could call him a mentor, that's exactly what he was for me. And so Free Solo was something we got to do together. And I remember him contacting me. He's like, hey, I got this documentary, and it's about a guy free soloing El Capitan. And I was like, wait, what? And so as a kid, I'd always gone to Yosemite. It was very much a part of my upbringing is backpacking and hiking. And so I remember the first time seeing the footage and thinking, this is insane. Like, this is the level, what the achievement, Alex's achievement is unbelievable. It's unfathomable, with zero margin for error, obviously. And so I think Marco definitely wanted to maybe approach it as that level of epicness, if that makes sense, that accomplishment. But that also includes treating the tension like real tension. So we treated it basically like a feature film, as opposed to just like a documentary. And sometimes documentaries, the music can take a big back seat and become like wallpaper, we call it. But then in this case, we really treated it just like we're scoring a big drama. And, when you have footage like that, it makes it really easy, to score, big panoramic shots. And so that was how we just treated it like a feature film from moment one.
Well, it's like a very riveting documentary. I remember when we first watched it for the first time.
I could barely watch
I was like on the edge of my seat. I was like, oh my God, these climbs. So I definitely think the music works and builds towards that. And I think all the big focal points in like the music are also like huge focal points in like the climbs and like seeing like where like the top of like the cliff is. So I think it was very beautiful when we just listened to the score alone and not with the documentary, because I think you just hear so much more, and you really can like pick it apart, I think.
Yeah, well, the symphony of it all, the expanse, you feel all of that. And then I felt the climb in the music.
Yeah, well, the funny thing was, normally when you're writing music for a film, it's normally most cues, like tracks, we call them cues, are about 2 minutes long-ish, around there. And you can have a long one, a slightly longer one, you can have slightly shorter ones. But we had this one that just said the climb 15 minutes, and it was because it's basically, the last whole third of the film is that climb. And so we had to definitely break it up into like stages of risk, stages of so that was quite the challenge alone, just figuring out how to tackle the climb itself, let alone all the stuff that preceded it. But it was a really cool project. And then I climb too. Like, do a lot of indoor climbing, and so like having a chance to meet Alex was like, it was very cool. I mean,
God.
yeah.
When we're in LA, Maxime, we've gone to Culver City. There's a gym, climbing
Yeah.
gym there that I've been to. I go as a guest. So I don't,
Climbing is so hard.
I'm afraid
I
of
think.
heights.
Yeah.
But speaking
Yeah.
of that, how did you get from, and you could tell us about the burger shop and where you,
Oh,
from,
right. Okay.
from your experience there to doing Free Solo and A Quiet Place and Twilight Zone and all the many things in between.
Andor.
But I want to hear about that encounter and how that worked.
Sure. So I grew up in Carmel, in the Central Coast, and I worked during late high school, and then when I would come back from college in the summers, I would work at this hamburger place as a waiter, and it was this local hamburger joint. And at that point, I was already going to school for music, but in late high school, Alan Silvestri, who is like basically a film composing god. So he did, Back to the Future. He did, Forrest Gump. He did, the Avengers movies, and he would go in there, and I would see him in there, and I'd take his order, but I couldn't help but geeking out. And so I'd be like, Mr. Silvestri, please forgive me, but I just want to let you know I'm such a huge fan, and one day I'm going to be a film composer. And he's like, to his credit, he's the nicest, warmest, kindest man. He's like, oh, that's so great. You should come by and check out the studio, which completely blew me away. And I think this goes to one important point, which is how much people you admire, how they react to you when you talk to them, how much that shapes your future on not just how you treat other people, but then also how welcoming you are into the thing that you are pursuing. And so I got to go over to his house and his studio, and his brother-in-law, which is his like right-hand man, was showing me all the stuff and cluing me into, hey, here's how we do this, and here's how we do this. And I didn't understand everything at that moment, but it slowly gets put in the back burner. And most importantly, it was the impetus to not just follow it as a career, but to go running towards it as a career. And so he put me in touch with a couple contacts in LA, because he knew I was moving down to LA. And then every once in a while, and this is the funniest thing, throughout my career, I'll bump into him. So I'll say, hey, and he's like, oh, hey. And so I would see him maybe 5 years later. And I saw him up at Skywalker one time. We were recording a score up there. He's like, wait, it's you. And I said, yeah. He's like, okay, you're starting to make it. And I said, yeah. And so then 5 years later, I would go up and I'd go grab a hamburger at the place, and for some reason I'd see him, and he's like, hey, and he's like, it's still going well, yeah. And so anyway, so this became like a running joke, is like basically my check-in with him to see how my career's going. And so when he finally is like, oh, okay, yeah, you're doing just fine. It was a really neat life bookmark, like a touchstone to see your progress. And he's just the kindest, warmest man. And that makes such a difference when you're young and you don't know exactly what to do, and the people you admire are kind to you. That's like a huge thing. And so as a result, I've always, and also like with working with Marco Beltrami, who's a similar person, I've always tried to give back in the same way. Like when people are just younger, people want to know how the career works, or what should I do, or this and that. I whenever I can, I take the time, because it can be quite something to navigate at the beginning.
It's a great way to give back and make the universe a better place. And I think we definitely all need more of that every day. And I think just like La La Land, it'd be nice if one day you go back to this burger shop and a young burger flipper would say,
oh yeah,
hey, do you want to, when there's a movie about your life and your documentary, we can, it'd be fun to see. I want to ask about movies. and composing. So there are multiple ways that a composer can obviously go to take their craft. And um, musicians, Billy Joel has that famous song about Vienna, and I know he had classical aspirations and worked in those ways too. And I hear the classical music in your scores. Was it always movies for you? I mean, from when you were doing your guitar, and you could tell us where you studied ultimately in college or conservatory. But I'm curious how you choose among the different genres that
Right.
were available to you and the paths in composing.
No, it's a good question, and it's, as with most things, it's muddy. Because I was set on being like a jazz guitarist, so I went to USC I was in their studio jazz guitar program, and I remember I was playing a gig somewhere, and I just had this a revelation that this career was not sustainable. Like basically playing jazz clubs and everything as a guitarist. And then simultaneously, I went to go see a Wagner opera. And for some reason, that hit me so hard at just the right time. Again, you have to be like at the right time in your open-mindedness, I guess. And so I was like, wait a second. And I'd always been studying John Williams scores, and I loved, James Horner and, Jerry Goldsmith and all those guys. I'm like, wait a second, I could just, and I'd been writing a lot for jazz ensembles. What if I just combine them? So I looked into, coincidentally, USC has like the best, well, at the time had like the best film scoring program and one of the only ones. And I'm sure it's still amazing now. But so I asked about transferring in there, and they said, oh yeah, and just, I had to, demo and applied, but I got in, and I was like the worst student or the worst level. Like everyone was so much better than me, which lit a fire under my butt to, learn everything I could. To at least not look pathetic compared to my peers. And so, yeah, that was kind of how I segued in. And that from that point on, it was only film composing. Like I still play a little bit, but not like performance wise.
So you're saying you were the worst of the composing, and that lit a fire under you to learn as much as you can. Do you have advice for our viewers about failure or feeling like, you're the worst in a class? I know some people can take that and shut down or say, I'm not meant to do this. What helps someone say, I'm going to work harder and I'm going to learn everything there is to learn. And just because I'm here now doesn't mean that that's where I'll be tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh man, that's an excellent question. Okay. For me, I like, I think I'll only speak for myself. I knew I was in the right career from it fulfills me point. So I didn't doubt that. What I doubted was my skill level, and that never goes away. I doubt it every day, every project I start. I feel basically like a big fraud. Okay. So the difference is, do you move forward in spite of that, or, and just put the hours in and say, work with the problem, or do you retreat from it? And so in school, I realized very quickly the truth of the situation, which is, wow, these guys are amazing. So then I just decided to ask everything I could, of whether it was my teachers or my fellow peers, like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you, and a lot of these people I'm still friends with, and we're all in the industry, and they're still amazing. So, but I think it's okay to fail constantly. But I think you have to know the difference. And this is a gut feeling, if you're in the right career or not. And I at one point wanted to enter into architecture, and it didn't affect me the same way as music. So I think that I just kind of knew. And so once then I don't think I really had the choice to I could either not learn anything, or I could just accept my deficiencies and try to work on them. But the thing is, it will never go away, because you even if you learn something new, all that does is put you to another level in which you now know less. So you're like, you've been upgraded, but now you've been upgraded to a situation in which you need to know even more. And so it's a good thing. It's like a muscle that you train to just accept, like, you're always going to be learning, and that's okay. But what I take great comfort in is knowing every single, just speaking from composers, every composer I know feels exactly the same. Like, oh, good. You feel terrible too? Perfect. And with it, when I say terrible, I mean, you doubt your own skill set. You doubt, like, why is this piece of music so hard to write today? And it just doesn't, there's no explanation. It's just part of moving forward through a career, I think.
I think it's the same thing with anything, acting and the theater. You know that this is where you're meant to be, and there will be times along the way when you wonder whether you could take this role or work with these people or rise to learn this accent or learn all the things you have to learn. And the same in
composing as well. Like, just like I've been taking music theory now for a little while. I've done it this will be my 3rd year in school studying it. And every year we have some type of composition final. And this year was definitely my hardest, but I thought it would be easier because I've gone in with now 2 years of prior experience. And then I came into my final project, and every single time I sat down to try to rework the piece, it just felt so hard. And I think thinking about it as, it's not that it's harder than it was last year. It's just that I've learned more since last year. So now I am able to do more complicated things in my pieces, but that may be harder for me. So
correct.
I think going into we just submitted our final compositions and we got our feedback back, and I think it was interesting. I definitely think that it was really hard, but not because that it wasn't hard for others. I just had a little more knowledge, so I was able to do more complicated things, making it harder on myself. So I think hearing the way you phrased it really helped me think about the past 3 compositions I've really done.
And I think also that unique fear that every creator has. I also am a writer and I write, and there is that blank page feeling where you
totally
have to persevere and not be afraid of the blanks and, believe in yourself. And it's very hard. You'll be working on something for years, and then one day you'll say, oh, this was, sometimes you can wake up and say, why have I been working on this? It's, a waste of time.
Yep.
And so you have to wrestle with that constantly, that part of you that doubts your own talents and your own place. And I guess they have that whole imposter syndrome thing that everybody talks about, that you wake up, you are giving a talk somewhere and you wonder why, am I meant to be here? And I think people in every career experience that especially when they're doing something new or at a higher level, you feel that fear. And I think the key is learning from mentors like Brandon that, very honestly say, I feel it too. And I even feel it now. So it never quite goes away. Although you can, I know for stand-up comedy, you try to turn that anxiety into excitement. So you get to the stage and you feel that it's sort of the same feeling, but you have to tell your brain, I am not scared. It's actually just, I'm excited to be here, or I am scared and I'm excited, and
I haven't learned how to do that yet, but mine stays at a constant level of fear, but it doesn't, what I hear, and this is like the most valuable piece of advice I think I ever got, was just get started. Cause I have noticed that it's not like the fear stays there constantly. It's getting started on something. It's the eat the elephant one bite at a time concept. But every morning, like just speaking for composition, you're basically looking at a blank page and a deadline. And so it can feel insurmountable. How is this going to work? And, and you have to trust your process. And then you also have to just get started on something. Because that generally makes it so you stop thinking about all the things that could go wrong and you start just focusing on the actual thing you're doing right now. So I found that to be like, my wife's always, she's like, just get started. You'll feel so much better. I'm like, no, you don't understand. And then 5 minutes later, I'm like, oh, this is fine. This is fine.
Actually, that is the same thing in, stand up. When you're standing there, you do just say your first line.
Right.
You
exactly.
take a breath and you say your first line. Or when you're writing something new, I know lots of writers will write pages they'll entirely throw out, right? You might throw out the first 7 pages, you keep 3 lines inside
right.
something, and later on you might come back to different things. You sometimes when I read something I've written, I even wonder who wrote it, because it doesn't feel like it was me,
Right.
in that moment. So I love that advice. Just get started. And it sounds like part of your process, psychologically, what you're saying is just get started with that fear, that procrastination, where all the things that can go wrong, you got to put them aside and be inside the climb, inside the action.
Yeah. I think knowing also your weaknesses is helpful. Like for me, I'm not the fastest writer. So I know in order to compensate for that, I'm trying to make up for it in scheduling things intelligently. Like, okay, I need to get started this day and I need to write this much music. I need to, before I'm in trouble, right? I need to, I start as early as I can from like on a project. And I generally, as much as I wish my initial period of coming up with ideas was nice and neat, it's just wreckage. I try something, I'm like, oh, it's terrible. Like, I'll try something else. This is terrible. Then I go through, oh, I'll never write anything good again. Then, like, it's almost comical, even saying it out loud. But it is this level of just dramatic. And so out of all of this wreckage, somewhere I go, oh, that's kind of a cool little seed. And then that becomes the thing that then you can run with, right? And I think a huge part to one of the benefits of getting older and having done a lot of projects is you start to trust your process a little bit. And even if your process is embarrassing, you realize it's just how it works for you. So my process is absolute devastation in week 1. And then from the ashes comes this tiny little idea that then blossoms into the whole rest of the score. And then hopefully, you get positive feedback from the director and producers on the direction. But, and most of the time you do. But it's not a nice, clean process. My process is once I get past that initial section, then it's nice and neat. Then I feel like I have direction. Today I'm going to write this cue. Tomorrow I'm going to write this cue. I will generally set a timer because I have a bad back. So in order just to get out of the room, I'll set a timer for 50 minutes, take a 10-minute break, 50 minutes, take a 10-minute break. So I'm doing these like hour-long things. I take time to, have dinner and read to my kids. I past the point of being willing to do all-nighters and stuff like that. I did my fair share of them, but I try to schedule this stuff so that it's not insane.
When you write your pieces, do you start with like a certain instrument when you're writing multiple instrument pieces? Is there
it's a good question. It depends. Like every project's different, and I might be motivated by a sound. Like I come up with a weird, like an actual sound or a synth thing that I messed with, or it might be, like you said, it might be an instrument, or it might be a melody idea, a melodic idea that has nothing to do with a specific instrument yet. So that's where you just kind of follow down the rabbit hole, whatever feels right, and then go from there. And sometimes it's a miss, but it's, that's the part I don't question anymore. It's like, if the main motivation is just a weird sound, then I'm just going to go with it and see what happens.
So that's trusting your process that is a product of education, building your skill set, trusting yourself, learning from your mentors what their process is. And I assume that's something that has happened as well? Have you taken pieces of how other people work and incorporated it into your
oh yeah,
process?
oh yeah, oh big time. So not, and I think it's a great topic. Is you don't just take the actual, let's say, music ideas. So let's take Marco Beltrami, working with him. So I got to see him, like, when we were working on Logan, he was navigating, like, just watching him navigate just the politics of doing the career. Forget the actual writing of the music, but just seeing how he is at scoring sessions and how he is when a situation gets difficult on when you're recording, and like, oh well, let's try this, and how calm he is, and how he makes the bosses feel like they're, all in it together and participating together. And you observe all this stuff and you're like, oh wow, okay, I would have probably folded under that pressure at that moment. So you learn so much from people on how that are farther up the ladder than you, on how their process, in terms of just things like schedule, things like how they deal with other professionals. And then in addition, then you kind of grab little nuggets of actual musical, or whatever the particular career is, you grab, like in my case, musical tidbits. So like watching Marco do a revision, I would get notes on a cue and it might say, hey, it needs to be blah, blah, blah. It feels like we don't have enough momentum here. It feels like there's not enough energy, blah, 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 blah. I'm reading this note when I'm younger and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a total rewrite. It's a disaster. And he looks at it and he's like, just add a kick drum, like pulse at this. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, that'll take care of the momentum aspect of it. So I was like, all right. So I added it in, and the next thing, oh, it's amazing. It's so you learn, you learn, you go from thinking something's a catastrophe to someone who's been doing it a long time saying, no, it's just this and this. And that's perspective you cannot get with anything other than experience. And so being around someone that has that experience, you graft some of that. Yeah.
I love that. So that speaks to really the apprenticeship model, where you work closely with someone who you, I guess, drink it in. It's like,
correct.
It doesn't even have to be conscious, but you sort of see the way they work, and then you bring that to your consciousness and you bring that to your process. And you might be 3 years later, somebody may give you notes that may make you feel like that, and then you'll remember, oh, I just added this drum line or whatever you learned a long time before. So and how do you, so that's and I love that. So when you get feedback, to not just destroy the whole house, don't think that you have to like sweep everything away and start from scratch. I know that's hard. It's the same thing as getting notes on a script. Suddenly you feel like, oh, this whole thing is ruined. It's going to take me months to take these notes. And then you realize that the person giving you notes is also not necessarily translating it to your process. They may be giving you notes that it's your job to figure out efficiency and how to live with the note.
Yeah.
And how to make it work.
Yeah, I think actually you bring up a good point about just taking criticism. So I think it's very important to distinguish between personal criticism and professional criticism. And so very few people will actually give you personal criticism. But when you read a note on something, especially if you have a creative career, like a career, I find it's almost impossible to take anything. Like, I've gotten better at it and my skin's gotten thicker, but that first response is always, it's a personal attack, because you feel like, oh, you've created this thing. This is my idea of, like, my taste is now encompassed in this piece I sent you, my entire taste, and you didn't like it. So if you don't keep that at bay, it's very easy to go off the deep end. But if you actually so my first thing was, like, when I get notes, I have to, like, I accept my first reaction is DEFCON 5, right? Then I go and I grab a coffee, and then I come back.
I was going to say you grab a coffee. That was my guess. I almost thought that would be first, but anyway, that's so funny. I was thinking
the notes. The first thing I do is I print out the notes, Because for some reason, having the thing printed allows me to choose to just cover up a line and, like fake myself into like, I'm only dealing with this. No, I'm only dealing with this.
I love that.
Or if it gets really bad, I can crumple it up and throw it. No, I'll deal with that later. So I'll print it out. I'll do the first, like, take it in, like, how bad is this? How much time? Because I do also want to know, like, what realistically, what do I need to schedule for this? On, like, is this days? Is this a rewrite? So quick assessment, damage control, right? Like, damage assessment. Are we taking in water? So, okay, we're not. Great. So, then, like you said, grab a coffee, come back, and then I try to turn off all emotions, say, what is the thing that's being asked here? And here's what's really weird is I would say well over 50% of the time, especially if it's coming from the director, the note is a good note, or it's a good idea. Or even if you don't agree with it, it makes sense, and it's just a difference in taste. So it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I could see you playing this emotion for this scene as opposed to the one I went with. So that's just a difference in a taste, and that's not right or wrong. I think where it gets difficult is when you start getting notes from either people that aren't qualified to give them or are giving really not great notes that are actually detrimental to what will work for the scene. And that's where experience comes in to kind of do some of it, apply some of it, but not to the point where it becomes bad. Or sometimes I'll just do two versions. Like, here's your version and here's another version. We'll record both, and then you guys can choose later. And that's a good way to cover your behind when necessary.
And
that's
working,
that's actually great advice.
Yeah.
And I think writers do that as well. You keep your version, and you give a different version, and in the end, maybe you'll go 70% toward the note or 10, and it won't. And I think also in acting, when you get an adjustment, it's very similar. You sort of do your prep work and then you get an adjustment. You're not supposed to throw out everything you've prepared as an artist, but you put something inside what you've prepared, and it might change it, shift it, but you don't want to. It's sort of a matter of also confidence as an artist. You don't want to throw out everything you've done because it came from a place you trust.
Yeah.
As well. So
yeah, agreed. And you don't want to betray your instincts to the point where you feel like you're not the right person for the job anymore. I mean, there are those situations too where at a certain point you realize, I'm not who you want for the gig, and unfortunately most of the time when that happens, you just get fired. But it doesn't matter. Like, those sting really, really bad, but they happen. I mean, they happen sometimes, not often, fortunately, but they do happen.
I had a question. I was wondering, as an artist, do you find other art forms inspiring for your work? Do you go to museums? Do you use architecture? Is there a way that you look towards other art forms for inspiration?
No. So I like, obviously an architecture fiend, because I had a background in it. So I love, show me a Frank Lloyd Wright house and I'll drive right towards it. So museums, art. My wife's a fine artist and a children's book illustrator. So clearly that's a huge part of our household. I don't, to be honest, I don't think any of that directly affects music. But it's, let's say, certainly fills up my soul going to all that stuff and taking my kids there because I want them to experience it. So when I say taking my kids there, to museums or to just events, even something as simple as taking them to the La Brea tar pits. I just want them to experience history and all that kind of stuff. But in all honesty, I don't think it really affects music for me. But however, listening to other music affects me greatly. So I could listen to either other film composers, other classical musicians, rock groups, or anything, and it I'm like, ooh, that's a cool idea. And if I can steal it, I'll steal it. So
Yeah, that's what I think. Is a good artist borrow, great artist steal, or
Yeah.
something like that. So all art is built on these building blocks. So what
Well,
are oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, please, please.
One of some of your favorite artists, how you say?
Well, what do you think of that? And who are some people, if you don't mind telling us, that you feel like you've, stolen from or have greatly influenced you, or however you want to look at in the music space, let's say outside of the film composing space or inside,
Sure.
but anybody.
All right. So I have a theory on this. This is my theory. My theory is that you are a person is their taste is a is the conglomeration of all of their influences, right? So I when I was at USC, one of the assignments they would have us do is all of us would have to score a certain scene, but it was the same scene. So it might be something from a Charlie Chaplin film, it might be something from a action scene. And let's say there was 20 of us in the class. Here's the same scene with what is basically supposed to have a similar, you would think it's the same drama, right? It's like, oh, this happens, this person's sad, this boy. You could not have 20 more diverse approaches to the exact same scene. And I remember some of those like, whoa, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I assumed that character had some sort of internal struggle I was like, man, I never read into that. So you'd have all these different approaches to the same scene. And from that, I kind of realized, you know what? We're actually all just products of our taste. And our taste, in my opinion, is all of our things that influenced us. So I was hugely influenced by John Williams, Thomas Newman, James Horner, but then by like Rage Against the Machine and Metallica and Radiohead, and then by all the whole jazz world as well. So all these things you kind of take from, but it might just be little tidbits here and there. Like it's not. And so I always think it's funny when I say, oh, I'm going to borrow that. Well, what you're really borrowing is there's some little seed from something that you've heard or that now becomes part of your taste, something that gets implemented. But I never have the fear of, let's say, theft because of that moment of realizing that everybody is combining their influences to make their own just gumbo of their own, taste. And so, yeah. And so, and the funniest thing is as you get older and have more experience, people start talking about, oh, you have a sound. They're like, what, a sound? No, I don't. And then you realize, oh, you've just been doing it so long that your taste has solidified on some level. Or you get known for something. And so, but I find it fascinating that you can, have this many people write to a scene and have it sound that different. It's just mind boggling.
Yeah, and that's such a great exercise. I went to a performing arts high school all 4 years, and we did that very often in our acting classes. We would all be given the exact same lines, it was like a one pager. Everyone had the same lines. We'd be put in groups of like 2 or 3. And we did the same one our freshman year and the same one our senior year. So it's like and we recorded both. And at the very end of our senior year, we actually watched our freshman year ones and our senior year ones. And it was so funny because it was the exact same scene and you're with the exact same people, but it was so different. And there was, I think, 14 of us and we were divided by 2. So there was 7 different scenes freshman year and 7 different scenes our senior year. And same lines, same everything. But it was really fascinating how everyone does really have like not like a look but like a way they like to act or a way they like to characterize themselves or their friends and their scene partners, I think.
But also their taste had developed over the course of let's say 4 years and taking in all these influences. And you might like the way Meryl Streep acted something, or there might be a movie in which you learn something from Adam Sandler, or the classics, and as an actor all the great performances in the theater that you see. And it becomes a part of your vocabulary. And the same with writing. You could have the same prompt and people write 20 different pieces that the way they perceive a prompt. So, and that's what's fascinating about our world. So when people say there are no more news stories or there's no more, because of the way I think art is this conglomeration that's always shifting and reflecting our realities and our psychology, I think that's how we get new things because it's...
Oh, yeah, I agree. I agree. And people taking chances, like combining elements or genres together that you're like, you never would have thought could have worked together. But then having enough taste to make them not feel like they're grinding against each other, but actually like, wow, that was a cool idea. I wouldn't have thought of doing that. I'm going to borrow that idea now. So,
Right.
you know, it's, yeah.
Like a hamburger with peanut butter and jelly. Getting back to our hamburger theme. I
have limits. I have my limits.
Actually, it's crazy. I thought I had that limit, and it was my birthday. We went to a special place in Vancouver, sort of in Langley, and they had that burger, and I tried it. It was really great.
Good. There was one question that I was really drawn to. As a musician, I think that music can be a very large tool for change. Do you think that your music changes things in the world or inspires change amongst people in the world?
I don't know. It's an excellent. I've gotten some very nice, emails or Instagram messages and here and there about stuff, which I'm always flattered and glad to hear. But in all honesty, I don't ever think about stuff like that. I only think of. Put it this way. It's so hard for me to please myself that everybody else gets put on the back, other than, so I guess I don't think of it in terms, if people like it, awesome. That means, it means the world. It's not like it doesn't mean anything, but it's not something I guess I ever think about, because it's so hard to just get it past me. That by the time it's finally done, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to move on. Like that was exhausting. Yeah.
Yes, I'm tired of me. Forget. I love that. And yeah.
No, I was gonna say, but I will say, if it in any way, if people get inspired by it, or like I did to people whose music I admire, then all wonderful, because that would be great. So.
I know this is. I have a few questions that I'm gonna try to get in because I've. First of all, I want to ask about A Quiet Place.
Okay.
So it's called A Quiet Place, obviously, and it's about the lack of sound. How do you work with that as a composer? How did that play into your process? The music is incredible. We also can listen to that without the movie. So I wanted to ask you about how that process was for you.
Yeah. So that was also with Marco, and I will say that I don't think I've ever seen a movie in which like sound and music had to dance together that much. But we actually wound up writing more music than's in the film. And then I think as they started finishing up the film, they're like, well, wait a second, it's going to have more tension if you pull this out. And I learned a very valuable lesson on that film, and then on Eli Roth's Thanksgiving movie I did, which is, he said, nope, leave this dry. Take all the music out. I'm like, wait, what? And I learned that it's sometimes way more effective and tense to leave something dry, and then it'll have 10 more, when I say dry, like no music, there's still sound effects in there, but when the music finally does come in, it has so much more of an impact. And so both A Quiet Place and Thanksgiving were kind of lessons in that, where I just couldn't believe when you see the final product, like how effective it is to leave certain things out, and how much more the music lands harder when it does finally come in. So that was a good lesson.
I love that. It's the same with acting pauses, when you sometimes take a moment to breathe, and then how much more effective we can be, and how the whole effect can be different based on silences. And same thing, with writing, just holes in that will allow our audience in, or allow us to fill in some moments with whatever we're feeling. I have a question. So you talked about if you lose a job, right? So sometimes and that doesn't happen that often as we imagine. Can you tell us what was sort of, you don't have to name names if you want to, but what was like the worst experience like that you had to pick yourself up from, sort of, we call them challenges, or you could say.
Yeah, they're when I had one project I remember where I was coming up with all these thematic ideas and sending them in, and basically nothing was right. And then you start get less email responses, or it's taking, you're like, something's up, something's suspicious. And then they called me and said, yeah, it's not working out. I said, well, can I send another thing? And they said no. And I said, all right. And I ironically, you don't want to be working on a project where they don't like what you're doing. So it is kind of a blessing in disguise, but it is almost impossible. It's the equivalent of being broken up by someone that you shouldn't be with in the first place. It still stings, right? It still stings, even though it's the right thing. Like, okay, great, you just did us both a favor, but you're still the person being broken up with, and that's no fun. So, I think when they happen, there's no way to sugarcoat it. It doesn't matter what your age is, whatever. I just think that when it does happen, you go, fine, whatever. And I have the tendency to just cauterize like all emotion for that. So like when it happens, I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm done with, I will give you, it's not even conscious. I just shut it down. Great. Move on. Next thing. And for me personally, I find that it's best not to think about it. Unless I made a mistake. The only thing I do take from it is there something in my process that was a bad idea? And what I did find is it did change my process on not giving too much music over too fast, because that can overwhelm them. So, so that changed my process a little bit. But other than that, I try not to reflect on it if I really don't think there is something that could have been improved.
That sounds so healthy for relationship.
Yeah.
Brenda's giving us relationship advice as well to our young listeners.
Yeah.
So take it like it comes.
Just cauterize every part of your body until you're giant. Yeah.
Unless you learn that you should have been doing the dishes more or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. No, there's always something to learn. But I compartmentalize it and move on.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do a couple rapid fire questions, and then we'll end with our last, like we always do, 3 things you're looking forward to in the new year question.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, so first one we're gonna ask is burgers or pizza.
Okay, I'm gonna go with pizza, because I don't know if I could live without pizza, but I could live without a hamburger.
Okay.
Okay, love
Your
it.
favorite pizza?
Yeah. Pepperoni.
Where is it?
Classic.
Okay.
Pepperoni pizza.
Yeah.
Love it.
We just had pizza at Sally's in New Haven last night.
Which I would argue is the best pizza in the country.
So we're
now we're getting into this. Yeah.
Okay.
This is gonna get pretty intense.
Where's your best pizza?
No, I don't have one, so I'll try yours.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
You have to try
Sally's New Haven.
But the only problem is there's always a line. So
but it's okay.
Usually the line is like 45 minutes on the shorter side and then an hour and a half on the longer side.
Wow.
But
Okay.
it's worth it, because once you get in there, it's like.
So next time you're in New Haven, you come to Yale for something, it's worth a trip.
Done.
Okay, next. LA or New York?
You're in LA, but
Yeah, I'm gonna go with LA. I mean, I was born in New York, but New York's too full on for me. Like I can't believe how much energy that people in New York have. I don't have that much energy, so I'm gonna go with LA.
You need LA. I love both.
Okay, last one, Mom.
Okay, tuxedo or jeans?
Jeans.
Okay.
Jeans or even pajamas. Yeah.
No, I love it.
I love that, pajamas for your creative process.
Okay, so our last question we end all our guests on is, what are 3 things you're looking forward to in the upcoming year?
Ooh, okay. Well, one is obviously Tony's movie, so Behemoth, working on that.
Yes. I wasn't sure how much about that
we weren't,
about, but whatever Brandon can tell us about it, we're happy to know. This is how we met.
I think that's all I can say.
I think that's all he can say. That's why I had to speak.
Let's see, what else? I am actually I'm just finishing up a project right now with Eli Roth, which is this just insane horror film, and that's been a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. So that's going to come out. I'm looking forward to that. And this is
your second Eli Roth film after Thanksgiving.
Yes, exactly. but that it is some of the craziest music I've ever done,
Wow.
and
Oh my
it's
God.
fun, really
so
fun.
excited.
I know I should, but I'm gonna I have one quick follow-up question
God.
after that. But
Sure.
that's okay. Let's go with our last question. That's fine.
And then
third thing.
and then my I think the other thing is like my kids are at such a fun age. They're like 8 and 5 right now, and so it's just next year is going to be fun. Like they're just in a cool time. So yeah.
Actually, that was going to be one of my questions because we didn't talk about that, but I wanted to ask as a mom and someone who's mentored my own kids.
Yeah.
And it's been, I think, my favorite time of my life so far, which is interesting because I've had great times. But I wanted to ask about that and how, are there any parenting advice? You're a creative person. Your wife is an illustrator, so your kids are living in a creative household. And any advice about parenting, creativity with kids? I know you're taking them to different places and you're maybe even new places you haven't been, but we're always happy to hear your parenting, 101, if you had 3 things to say about it.
Oof. All right. Well, I'll say this because I try, just speaking for myself, I try to do kind of what my parents did for me because that was very valuable, which is expose me to a bunch of stuff and then let it land. Like you never, like obviously going back full circle to the music question, how I got into music, I bet if you asked them, they said the last thing they thought their kid would get into is music. But when I asked, they said, of course you can take lessons and etc. So I think we try to do that, which is try to expose them to different things without any preconceived idea of how it's going to pan out, So try this sport, try this, try guitar, try piano, try creative writing, whatever it is, doesn't matter, and with no expectations other than just do the work. If it's a lesson, you got to put the work in. And that's it. Everything else, I'll take your advice because you're farther ahead than me. So
I know I have. Well, actually, I love that advice, and I think that's advice for.
I think that's what we've done.
That is what we've done. Absolutely, exposure to sports, and I think the arts are very important. So that's always been very important to me, but all different forms.
Oh,
not
totally.
not just the theater, not just movies, but a lot of movies.
Right.
Well, 'cause Alexa,
This is we're a movie family.
Yeah, I was going to say, so Alexa, who's working on Tony's project with Brandon, is an actor, and my brother's an actor, but I was very into playing piano and singing
sports.
and sports. So it's like, I think it's been great that we're a very well-rounded family with many activities. My mom had to drive us too, but it's been great, I think.
But I think we share our love of movies. I think also
and
Brandon,
arts.
because absolutely. But during the pandemic, I think we watched.
Oh my
we
God.
started by watching The Seventh Seal, which is a movie I'd been trying
with
to
Demi
get
Moore.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness!
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
No, well, The Seventh Seal.
oh wait, no, you're talking about I'm sorry, that's
Birdman.
the Seventh Sign. The
Yes.
seven
Yes.
signs that Demi Moore would. Seventh Seal is
Seventh
definitely not the
Seal.
Demi Moore.
Seventh
yeah.
Seal.
Yeah,
which is
I was
funny.
like, that was like
No,
1950.
because my
Yeah.
kids were,
Demi Moore.
I think you guys
No.
were 8, 10, and 13, and believe
God.
it or not, I've been
It was
waiting.
terrifying.
I've been trying for years to get them to watch this movie, and everybody always voted me out. And
Right.
then there was a
Because it's
pandemic.
a terrifying movie. It's about like
Yeah.
the Black Death.
Well, it's about
plague.
life, actually, and I
Yeah.
don't want to spoil the end. There's some spoilers, but
Don't
of
spoil
course,
the end.
I'm not going to spoil it. But I actually think everyone should watch this movie. It's one of my top 10, and I saw it
Yeah.
first at Yale, and I got my kids to watch it, and philosophy, the importance of art, and how we deal with uncertainty, and how the joy of life, even in the midst of darkness.
And it was about a pandemic, and it was our first
Yes, that
pandemic.
was one
Oh,
of
that's
the ones.
right.
We
Yeah,
watched, Yes, it was our first pandemic. But to start the pandemic, they finally said yes. I had them cornered with
my
nothing
God.
else to do. So, and I do believe in exposing children to, some of the dark things in the world too, but not too early. But I'm from the Soviet Union, so with Chekhov and Tolstoy and all of my influences, everything was always light and dark, and sort
Yeah.
of making sense of our condition and using art to pull through, and music, of course. Music was so big. I went to the Riga Ballet, where Baryshnikov is from, and so I grew up on ballet. But
Yeah.
that's one thing. But I love that you are I think the hard work part, I do want to emphasize, pull that out as well. Or just work, the work that's appropriate to any activity or lesson, because I think through the work, we learn to work through our fears. We learn to put ourselves out there. It really goes back to your first question and, your mentor that you met early on at the burger joint, and just your lesson for everyone, do the work, put in the time, have the faith, but do the work, because you need to be prepared for the luck when it comes, and to be prepared for your mentors, and to have that internal confidence that you don't quit too early, because the work will pull you through.
And I think that's a common theme we see amongst all our guests, is like the aspect of hard work in whatever field they're in is really what drives and pushes them through to ultimately having success in some level, in some form.
Well, because it helps you, it's action, right? When you're working, you're taking action. And I think it gets you out of your head. Because
I totally agree.
Right?
I totally agree.
So I love, and so I think in terms of what you're saying is with the kids, just the focus will give you those lessons, but make sure you practice. Make sure you get to the lesson on time. Do all that work. So I think you're doing that super well. And I just wanted to ask about horror, because you mentioned it, and that was one thing we didn't get a chance to get to. And we have two different, I think both of us are slightly afraid of horror movies.
Oh, I'm terrified. I can't watch anything.
And then we have a few people in the house that love it. They love horror movies. And I think I like horror movies as well, but I have to look away at some points. But have you been drawn to that? How did that happen? Because I know I think you've done a few. You did the Pet Cemetery, which I think Alexa auditioned for. I remember actually coaching that audition.
Yeah, I remember that so long.
Pet Cemetery, and that's scary.
Oh, really? All right.
So, yeah. And so can you just tell me a little bit about horror? Because it's such an important thing. It's such an important genre of movies. It's always, people love horror. And,
I mean, there's so many like subgenres within it, right? So you have, psychological, you have actual slasher stuff and whatever. I find them all fun. I draw the line at certain levels of violence, so that's it's not right. But for the most part, what I think I like about them is, in the same way comedy can do it, it can hit at important emotions, but kind of fool you into realizing you're watching a film about that. So, for example, it was like I don't know if like the House on Haunted Hill dealt with so much family stuff, and it's so well done. It has so much heart. Yet on top of it, you're scared senseless. And so I'm always impressed by how a lot of horror can. And then on the flip side, slasher films have a lot of comedy in them because they're so ridiculous that they become
and all that.
And so I find too, from a musical standpoint, that there's also a lot of creative freedom. So they're like they're always down to try anything as long as we're getting the dramatic effect. Try anything you want, and so it's kind of like it's such a blank slate for creativity. Because they're always willing to push the envelope, and it's just great. Like, and generally horror directors are super excited. Like once you find, like, oh, that's so cool, or and so it's just, I've just had really good luck with it and met some wonderful people, and I don't think I necessarily go out and pursue it. It just kind of happens, or it's people that you've worked with before. So, yeah,
I love it because you're so pleasant and positive. And then it's not necessarily what you imagine.
I can't.
Totally.
Of somebody writing this music that like scares you so much.
Oh my god, it terrifies me. I have to close my ears and I just have to look like this.
But I love that because I was thinking they do give you a sandbox, because I guess it's they're so creative, these movies. They can be in so many. I love what you're saying about the personality of the people who do them, because it's the freedom that you have to create within this specific sort of the rules of how you make people jump out of their seats.
Yeah, exactly.
Any just last sentence to any young people who may feel shy about approaching a successful adult?
Oh, just do it. Do it in an appropriate way. Like don't, pick time and place. And unfortunately it's not always going to be the right time and place, but, if it seems appropriate, most people respond to good manners. I mean, hi, sir, I just wanted, or hi, ma'am, I just wanted to say I'm a big fan. And, you know, most people are generally want to give helpful advice, especially if they're experienced. It's just sometimes they're busy, right? So that's my only caveat to that.
I love it.
I love
Good
it.
manners. Good manners.
Good manners.
Just do
yeah,
it.
be nice.
Good manners.
Be nice goes a long way.
Be nice
So-
goes a long
Okay.
way. I love it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching the podcast, and thank you, Brandon, for being on it. Tune in to our next one.
How
All right.
what you think about this creative path through careers.
Yeah, I mean, I the biggest thing I found is there's an infinite number of paths, and for every person that you talk to that's been around for a while, I'm always surprised by their path. So it involves a combination of luck, it involves skill, it involves doing a good job, even if that job at the beginning feels menial. And I think the end result I find is a combination of determination plus the cream rises to the top vibe seems to be the case. So it's, if you persevere and you always try to do a good job on whatever it is you're working on, even if that feels sometimes below what your ambition is, people notice. People notice, and the good combine that with a good attitude, combine that with a good work ethic, and then it's just time and grinding. So
Yes.
I love that. That is a great intro to our intro.
Yes. Okay.